What's up, everybody? Hold on, my camera is being silly. Morning. Let me get my camera figured out here. There we go. Has it figured itself out? Sweet. There we go. Cool. What's up, everybody? The plan for today is to finish painting the shield. The other thing I'd like to do is run through any questions. Good morning. I'd like to run through any questions y'all have as you've been going through this model itself. So if you want, I've got the Discord open as well, so you can throw in your models if you need to. It's me. If you have a specific question or anything, right? Throw it in the chat, in our Discord chat, and I can cover whatever we need to cover today. And in the meantime, if there's no questions, I'll keep painting my shield itself. Okay. So we already went through. Let me go to my screen here. We already went through some hand-painted wood textures, which I think turned out pretty nice. We could definitely get in there and add some more depth and shadow and stuff to that, but for right now it looks okay. We even applied it to the shield, which looks pretty decent. I'd like to splatter some like paint and stuff on there and make it look even cooler. But we do need to do our hand-painted metal, which is not too hard. It's a lot of... I can show you some examples here. Hand-painted metal is interesting. It's a lot of like soft brushes and then really light colors on hard edges. So if we do something like this, for example, this is exactly how I would approach doing it, right? Like, this is how Blizzard does it. It always ends up looking pretty decent. But you can see it's that bluish gray metal color, then with some soft, colors sort of painted in and splotched in there, and then they do the highlighted. They have a dark side and then they have a lighter side with the splotches, and then the edges are usually scuffed up and scratched with this lighter color. So that's how they do hand painted metal a lot of the time. You can see it here too. So we'll do something similar for our shield here. And we have all those different parts and pieces here that we can approach that with. The one that's going to be a little tricky is the ring on the outside. We just got to make sure we get that lined up properly. So that's going to mean we got to check our UV and just double check where our edges are here. And usually the way I do that is by selecting these faces in the shell, just to kind of orient myself in the space, right? So I know that's my front face. And then sometimes I'll even label it in the texture just so I know. Like I'll come back in here and just quickly point to that face, or write it on that face, just on a new layer. And I don't know if other people do this or not, but I find it to be effective. Just sometimes it's hard to remember what stuff is. So I'll say like front here. I gotta remember my opacity's turned way down. Let's change my brush too. So I'll just say front face on here, and then I'll just kind of label each edge just to remind myself where things are. So that's the middle faces, and then back face. So that's the middle face right there. So this one was actually the bottom, yeah. Yep. So then this right here is the middle face. This is the back face. Which means this is the front inside. This is the back inside. Now, that's just for me to visualize where stuff is, so I can say, okay, yes, I know where I need to paint those hard edges on here. Right? And then it also means, like, it could mean, depending on what actually needs to happen here, it could mean that I need to give a little more texture space to this ring, which means I could chop it in half somewhere. But we'll see. If the texture ends up looking okay, then we'll run with it, but so let me get in here. So we have our base color, our base like blue gray. So really what I need to do is on the whole thing, just kind of hit it with this splotchy sort of effect. And for that, I'm going to use like some textured brushes. Just hit it with some different like colors. Like I can really bump up this and do something like this, but I'm going to use, you know, colors closer to our stuff here. in general, I may, depends. Might hit it with like a purpley kind of thing here. Turn down my opacity. See, and this is a wet brush, which I don't necessarily need. That's a little better. We're going to call this color Metal Detail. I'm also going to just isolate it to right here with my selection tool, just so I don't have to try to clean it all back up. That's fine. I'm just trying to find the right brush. Like the splatter is fine, but it's not necessarily what I want either. Kind of like this. Yeah, that's what I want right there. Okay, so I'm gonna hit it kind of with this everywhere. Then I'll hit it with some, maybe some even purpley, more purple. And then I might hit it with like, come back with like some rust kind of in some spots. I might even like, let's see here, turn down that opacity way harder on there. And then sometimes the trick with this kind of layer like this, so we're just hitting it kind of like this. Maybe even darken this up. See, we're getting that effect now, right? Like I want that sort of patinaed effect here. And that can just be happening everywhere, right? And then, now that that sort of, hello, now that that sort of base metal is there, right? We have that kind of effect that I want. Now I can come through with that lighter color of this, like this color here that we selected as our main color. I can come back and hit it with like a lighter version of that on the edges with a different brush here. Maybe with a soft round brush with that opacity up, and we can do, you know, some more aggressive, like hard edges. So if this is the front face, this edge here needs to be hardened, sort of lightened up. And you can determine how aggressive you want to be with that. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So maybe that needs to even be wider, you know. And then we hit it with a really intense line, kind of right on the edge. It's like full opacity. Maybe even lighter. Something like that. And then with that, then on the inside face of that, I may even want to darken it up a little bit. So like this, that's the front face, and here's the top face. This front face, I may take a whole like different shade of that blue, so a darker shade of this same blue here, and just kind of darken this layer up here. Okay, now it is. So I need to turn down this opacity, and then maybe something like this here on this face. Now, I don't totally want to destroy that detail that I put in there, but okay, so here's the top. Yeah, so this is the front, middle. I need to take this same line now that I did here and do something right here as well. So we're going to hit this the same way. Take our metal color here, because these are kind of the two rings that happen. So let's get this. Turn this back on here, and we'll start kind of painting this up. The same way we did the other one. Now, sometimes it's nice to take this, and then once you do some detail like this, kind of reload it back into your scene and just see how it looks. This is the difference between kind of painting a Photoshop texture and a, you know, a typical like substance painter texture, where you're painting directly on the model. You have a lot more control of what's happening. This, you kind of have to get a little more creative of how you attack. Turn this off, and now that I have this, I'm going to undo my selection. I'm going to save this out as a PNG here. Save it over the top of our shield color, and we can come back in here. And it should start reloading that back in for us, which is nice because we already have that texture linked. Okay, so that's feeling a lot better, right? We're hitting that corner pretty good. We need to do it on sort of all of these faces. I also want it to be a little bit harsher, maybe. So we'll make it a little bit wider. We need to do it on this edge as well here, but that's not bad, right? The backside, we definitely need to do a little bit more here, and then on this edge too. Then it's always nice to go in and add like dents and dings and all that kind of stuff too to make it feel more alive. But for right now, that feels like we're on the right track. So let's come back in here. We'll take this same thing. You know, I'm even tempted to make this a little wider. And make this one wider too. Then we also need to do it, we almost need to do it on all of these. So we'll take that here. I think the problem, and maybe what I've done, like coming back here, let's see. I don't really do it softly. Maybe that's why it feels off a little bit. So maybe we'll dial this back a little bit. And maybe we'll do a lot harder edge here. Maybe we'll take our, we'll try this really quick and load it in and see how it feels. That's to sort of define the characteristics of the metal for sure. Yep. So purpose of making it lighter. Yeah. I'm trying to define the edge of that a little bit better. But I think I need to do it with a harder brush. want to try it like that really quickly, and then do the same thing we just did. Yeah, I like that a little better. Now the idea is, do I let it be like that? Potentially. So now that I've done, now that I've done this, now the question becomes, okay, do I let my edge define it in my texture? And then not have the hard edge here? Yeah. No, because I still like the shading that it's giving me on those. Okay, that's fine for right now. We'll come back here and we'll give it some more life and detail through things. So we'll just do some cool stuff like this. We'll chunk out the metal a little bit in some areas to make it feel a little more real. So we do some stuff like this, and then we just have to go through and paint in some of that detail and shadow. So in reality, I should do something like this. Excuse me. So if I chunk it like this, right, then I need to come back in with this color around the edges to define that highlight on that scratch, right? So when I test something out like that, I usually like to do this too, right? It's always just kind of this back and forth. See, and this is where I'm like worried. I'm more worried about the texture quality here. Like that's pretty low res, which means I could potentially take this and give this more texture space, which means I'd need to maybe chop this in half somewhere and then scale it up and push some other things down. Or else I can do the same thing that I did here, just in a lower scale. Like I like what that was doing, but I need to fix this now because I can't undo anymore. So I'm using a tool called Clone Stamp, which just lets you kind of paint from another area in a different area, so that I can kind of match that same feel right there again. Then I can go back to this, my brush. Just go back over this. Okay. So I like the dings and dents that we were doing. Let's do, you know, maybe something a little smaller scale. We'll do something like this. Gotta make sure it has enough detail. Now what I'm gonna do actually here is take a new layer and call this scratches. And I can do this a little more effectively. So now that we've got some of those in there, now we can try and see this. See if those are scaling okay. Those are a little better. The texture quality is rough. And that's that all comes down to your UV placement. Like if I take my UV here and I scale this up now, yeah, it starts to look a little better at that higher res. But for right now, it's okay. I also just don't love these metal edges right now. So I may do something a little different here. may just chop this out. Make this here. Yeah, I think the softer edges looked better for sure. So I'm gonna go back to that, I think, a little bit here. Yeah, I like that a little bit better. So I just cheated a little bit, copy pasted my material, repasted it, stretched it back out. So that's fine. Let's do that same process again, maybe with those softer edges, just to clean it up. And then we're getting a little close to time here, which is fine. But just to show you guys a little bit of the process, which is what my goal was. I did like the look of this better though. So we'll do this, and we'll hit it with a little bit lighter one with a little more opacity turned up and a little smaller brush. Oh, too much. Still too much. Let's try this. Export. Quick export isn't. Oh. Yeah. See, I just like the look of that better. Now we may hit it with a little bit harder edge right there, but that feels better to me. Okay, so now that we've got that, the rest of this should be pretty easy too. Like we can take that same, because I had made that metal texture, I should be able to just kind of like use this everywhere now, which is kind of nice. fine. We can redo it too. We just used the pencil. So we can do the same thing here. We'll just turn our opacity down. Get some colors in here. Actually, the thing I want to do too is, before I start going crazy with this, is do a little selection box here. Just so we don't bleed into our other material. Now I can go nuts inside of here and not worry about it. Yeah, just want to be able to get that nice patinaed color on there. Oh, word of the day. Let's do... Yes, good question. Good question. Word of the day is going to be let's do hand paint like this. So see, that is even more of that sort of blued metal, which I like. So there's lots of different ways you can approach doing this, right? We've really kind of blued this, which now that I see this, I kind of want to do it to this too. But I think this also deserves that same treatment of the like soft. Yes, word of the day is hand paint.